The hunt for a phantom. And no, not a ghost in a haunted house, but a financial ghost. A specter that, for decades, moved through the world's markets, controlled a fortune bigger than the economy of many countries, and then just vanished. This is the story of the world's most successful fraud, and how it was pulled off, right in plain sight. $50 billion. Just let that number hang in the air for a second. It's a figure that's almost impossible to really wrap your head around. It feels more like a myth than a real number, doesn't it? But for thousands of investors, it was very, very real. And then one day, it just wasn't. So that's the central mystery we're going to unravel today. How does $50 billion, money that's tracked by experts, auditors, and regulators, just disappear into thin air? Well, to find the answer, we have to go back to the very beginning and understand the man who created this ghost. You know, every great magic trick needs a brilliant magician, and the man behind this $50 billion vanishing act, he wasn't just seen as a magician. To the outside world, he was a genius, a true financial outlier who had somehow cracked the entire code of the market. And this right here, this is the key to understanding how it all began. A financial outlier is someone whose results are so consistently amazing, they seem to break the laws of financial gravity. They don't just beat the market, they seem to exist in a different league entirely. And for decades, that is exactly the image our phantom worked so hard to create. See, the illusion was built layer by layer, over decades. This wasn't some flash in the pan. It was a long, slow-burning myth. The returns weren't just high, they were steady. Year in, year out, didn't matter if the market was booming or crashing, he delivered. And that consistency, it feeds a deep human desire for certainty in a totally chaotic world. It created this aura of invincibility, this image of an untouchable wizard who had a secret that nobody else did. And that was the heart of the whole illusion. The very thing that made him so attractive was also the biggest red flag. The performance was so perfect, so impossibly consistent, that it just defied logic. And this is where psychology kicks in. People wanted to believe in the magic so badly that they just switched off their own critical thinking. It was a classic case of what they call the halo effect. Because he was successful, everything he did was seen as brilliant, even the parts that made absolutely no sense. Okay, but if the profits weren't real, where did all that money come from? How did this $50 billion illusion actually work? To figure that out, we have to follow the ghost's money trail. So on the surface, the explanation was always super complex and shrouded in mystery. He'd talk about sophisticated proprietary trading strategies, exclusive international investments, but the hidden truth? It was shockingly simple. There were no genius investments. The entire operation was just a carefully choreographed dance, moving money around to create the appearance of profit. This is a classic Ponzi scheme. It's one of the oldest tricks in the book, just scaled up to an absolutely unprecedented size. Here's how it works. New investors, lured in by the promise of these impossible returns, they pour their money in. But that money isn't actually invested. It's just shuffled through a maze of accounts. Then, fake statements are created and sent out showing incredible gains. And the linchpin holding it all together, when old investors want to cash out, they're simply paid with the new investors' cash. It's a house of cards that can only stand as long as new money keeps flowing in. But a house of cards, no matter how big, is still fragile. And this one was showing cracks for decades. So if the trick was this simple at its core, how on earth did it go undetected for so long? The truth is, it wasn't undetected. The ghost left traces everywhere. The warnings were there all along. This timeline just shows the sheer audacity and longevity of the whole thing. This was not a secret. From the very first decade, analysts were asking questions, pointing out that the returns were statistically impossible. By the second decade, formal complaints were actually being filed with regulators, but they were consistently dismissed, often because the regulators themselves were kind of intimidated by his reputation. By the third decade, even insiders were sounding the alarm. But the myth was just too powerful. That untouchable reputation acted like a shield, deflecting every single warning. And looking at where the warnings came from is incredibly telling. The vast majority, as you can see from that first bar, came from whistleblowers. You know, people on the inside or financial analysts on the outside who just did the math and realized it was impossible. Regulators, yeah, they made some inquiries, as the second bar shows, but they never dug deep enough to pierce that veil of secrecy. And competitors, they mostly stayed silent, maybe out of professional courtesy or just fear of being wrong about a living legend. The people with the clearest view were the ones who were ignored the most. And here's the most chilling part of this entire story. He almost got away with it. The whole $50 billion empire was on the verge of collapsing under its own weight for years. There were so many close calls, audits that came up empty, investigations that were shut down way too early. Time and time again, he managed to get more funding, silence another critic, or dodge another regulatory bullet. The ghost was one step away from disappearing forever, leaving nothing but ruin behind, without ever being caught. It wasn't genius that unraveled the scheme in the end. It was the simple, unstoppable force of a global financial crisis that cut off the supply of new money. The music just stopped, and the ghost was finally revealed. So the phantom was eventually caught, the illusion shattered. But the shadow cast by this $50 billion ghost, it still lingers over the financial world today. So what can we possibly learn from a fraud of this magnitude?
Ultimately, this wasn't some victimless crime played out on spreadsheets. The human cost was absolutely staggering, with life savings, retirements, and charitable foundations just wiped out overnight. It proved that even the smartest experts can be blinded by greed and reputation. It reaffirmed the oldest rule in the book: if it looks too good to be true, it absolutely is. And it taught us that any system that operates in total secrecy without genuine, independent transparency is a system just waiting to be broken.
And that brings us to our final, pretty unsettling question. We have more regulations now, we have more technology, more transparency, but we also have a faster, more complex, and more interconnected global financial system than ever before. So I'll leave you with this to think about. Have we really learned our lesson? Or is another ghost, maybe an even bigger one, quietly being born right now?